So much for coming out tonight and being here with us. My name is XP Lee. I am your facilitator host tonight. I am wear many hats, local community activist, city council member for Brooklyn Parks East District, and also kind of the coordinator, or what is it? The program director. That's right, I forgot my title. For a new group that my wife and I are starting, hoping to be able to build power and leverage for the Asian Pacific Islander community here in the Northwest Minneapolis area. It's called Asian Pacific Islander Coalition. Pretty bland, straightforward. But really happy to be able to work with Sewa, to be able to host here in this really great space. So again, thanks for coming. And I'm going to hand it over to Anjali to say a few words.
Thank you so much, XP. And we are really, really excited about the newly founded APIC, that's what I've been calling it. I don't know if you want to stick with that, the API Coalition, because it is such important work within our community. We want to welcome everybody to SEWA. SEWA is, this is actually our 20th year as an organization. We were founded as an organization to do direct service to the South Asian community, and we are Minnesota's largest South Asian serving nonprofit. So that is the, thank you, that is the Indian, Pakistani, Bangladesh, Bhutan, Afghanistan, Nepal, Sri Lanka countries in and around that area, and we also serve a lot of sister communities within our broader API population. We welcome you all to SEWA. It is so important. This is part of some of the civic engagement that we do with partners like APIC, like CAPI, like some of the organizations in the room that are doing really important, where's my KOM organization as well, I can't forget the Karen community, that we do really wonderful civic engagement work across communities. And what is really important about that is not just that we are doing it within our individual communities, but also collectively, and that's what makes organizations like APIC so important. That's what makes the MAP Caucus so important at the legislature, that we work collectively as a community to build that muscle and build that power as Asian Americans living in Minnesota. So we are very excited to be hosts today. I would love to offer a tour of our building afterwards for anyone who is interested in just learning a little bit more about SEWA's work and anything that we do. That's especially meant for the legislative members here tonight, if they want a tour afterwards. But we welcome you to this space, and I'm really looking forward to a robust conversation. I know many of the MAP Caucus members are absolutely incredible leaders within their own right, and we're so fortunate to have their representation at the legislature. Each of them is just a phenomenal leader on their own, and we are fortunate that they are representing our communities at the legislature. So thank you so much, actually, for organizing this event and bringing this over to the community here in the Northwest suburbs.
Thank you so much, Anjali. I can't take all the credit. I contacted Rep. Samantha Vang, and she was down, and we had some conversations and back and forth, and then was able to make this happen. So again, thanks to all of our legislators for being available and for coming out. Thanks to all of you again for your partnership and for your support and being here. So tonight is very straightforward. We're starting some introductions, and then each of the legislators will have 5-7 minutes or so to introduce themselves, but also they can go over how their year was and any highlights that they want to mention. So then we'll start with Representative Her, then we'll move down, and then afterwards we'll just move into a Q&A session. I have one to start, so get yours ready, but then we'll ask that you probably come up here, maybe on this side, so that way you can use the mic to ask your question, and then we'll get the answers, okay? And then it'll be Q&A for the rest of the time. We have this place till 8 o'clock, so use your time. That's what this is about, to bring the MAP Caucus here, which is we're so fortunate to have. Again, emphasizing what Anjali was saying in terms of just the wonderful work that they're doing, and just it's just amazing that we have the MAP Caucus as strong as it is to help us at the Capitol. So, all right, without further ado, I will hand it off to Representative Heck.
Thank you. I have this cough that I haven't been able to get rid of for 6 weeks, so bear with me. I'm not contagious. I'm Representative Khalid Vang Her, and so I've been going by the Her last name. I just added Vang in very recently. I am the chair of pensions, and I'm also one of the speaker pro temps. Maybe what I'll just do is I'll spend a little bit of time talking a little bit about the MAP Caucus first so that you all know. So the MAP Caucus is the Minnesota Asia Pacific Caucus, and we started this caucus the year that Representative Vang and I got elected. That was the year that we had the most Asian Americans at the legislature. And we have more now, but that was the year that we had enough momentum that we could create the MAP Caucus. And so this year we have 10 AAPI legislators, and there's 7 of us in the House and 3 of us in the Senate. And so who you see here today are just half of us. We also have Representative Afuli, who is the chair of capital investment, Representative Jay Zhang, who is the chair of labor, or is it workforce? And then we also have Representative Ethan Chow, who is actually the chair of the MAP Caucus. And then we have Senator Tu Zhang. He is vice chair of climate and energy, I think it is. And then also Senator Her, who is the chair of legacy. And so there's actually a lot of people here doing really important work. So there's 10 of us here, and most of us are chairs or are leading, like Representative Zamira is also the chair of the Minneapolis delegation. So everybody holds a leadership role, which is really unique if you know anything about the legislature. And so there's 10 of us here, and we are one of the largest AAPI caucus in the country. And what makes us unique is even though there's a couple of, we should get ourselves because it's really because of all of you that we have this caucus, and that what's unique about Minnesota's Asian Caucus is that we are in a trifecta here, which means that the same party has a majority in the House, the Senate, and the governor's office, which means that we did really great work because of that, and we were able to have a lot to show for. And so I just want to share a little bit I'll share about maybe the first year of our biennium of what we accomplished. We had 30 bills that we as the legislature said that we wanted to pass these 30 bills. And we probably should have had this handout, but we can send it to all of you later so that you can have this. But we have a graphic that talks about what we passed that were really key priorities for us. So we passed the reproductive freedom, the Protect Reproductive Option, which is our PRO Act. We passed paid family and medical leave. We passed a democracy protection package, which there's so many great things in that with regarding like restoring the vote, and also so many good things around reform around elections and ensuring that people have access, and ways in which that we're protecting ourselves so that we are allowing early registration for people who aren't 18 yet. And so there's just so many great things in these pieces. So everything I'm listing, there's actually sub things within each one of these as well. We passed driver's license for all universal school meals, so every child gets free breakfast and lunch. We have prohibiting price gouging on and 100% clean energy by 2040. We also have student support and mental health funding. Great start. I don't know, do you guys want me to read through all of this? Because it is a lot of it. I'm going to actually point out a couple of things that I think are really important, like the red flag laws. We also passed like first generation home buyers assistance. And I'm just going to skip through a couple of them because I want to make sure that my colleagues get to talk about some of their pieces too. But we passed like affordable prescription drug an affordable prescription drug package, which is really important. As you all know, anybody who's on a medication, the price increases on that. We passed Earn Sick and Save Time. I carried the bill for the English language learner cross subsidy, which we increased. We doubled the funding for English language learner. Representative Vang had the full service community schools. We also passed a public safety funding package and then an infrastructure bill. And what I want to just say that there's more on here, but we did a lot. And I think if anybody's been watching that work, we also allocated over $17 billion in the first year of the biennium, and then we also passed bills last year. And I just want to say one last thing, because I'm talking really fast here, but as the chair of pensions, I was really proud that for the first time in the history of Minnesota, we made a substantial investment in pensions, and that was historic for us. We put $600 million into pensions, and I think, as you all know, our communities work quite a bit in state, county jobs, and those jobs are all pension jobs. And so this was the largest investment we ever made, and I'm really proud that I got to chair that committee and figure out how we are going to best honor the work of our public employees. And so I'm just going to maybe wrap it up there, and I'm going to pass it on to Representative Sensimira.
Hi everyone, really happy to be here with you all. My name is Samantha Sensimura. I'm the state representative from District 63A, which is a part of South Minneapolis. I'm a fourth generation Japanese American, so I'm the one non-Hmong member of the MAP caucus, but honored to be here today and honored to have been a part of the caucus. I think I will talk about two kind of issue areas where I was on committees and I did a good amount of work, which is education and transportation. So starting with education, and there were some priorities for our MAP caucus within education, particularly making sure that students of color and Asian American students had the resources and support that they needed. One of the bills that I was really proud to carry that Chair Fu Lee had carried before me was the Ethnic Studies for All bill. And so this bill will ensure that students across Minnesota have access to reflective, honest curriculum that shows the diversity of cultures and histories that we have here in Minnesota. I also passed a bill around heritage language, so making it easier for teachers who speak heritage languages that are often not taught in our higher education settings like Hmong, Oromo, Somali, to be able to get certified in those areas to become teachers. We know that we hear a lot from families, immigrant families, refugee families, that making sure that their students are learning those languages in school is really important. It's one of the factors that families look for when they're choosing a school. And we know that there are talented folks in our communities who speak those languages. And so kind of removing the barriers for them to become teachers was really important. Additionally, we put almost $100 million into the Teachers of Color Act, which is trying to change the teaching population in Minnesota. We all know in this room that our student population is rapidly changing. We know that Asian Americans are actually the fastest growing group in Minnesota. And I think one of the things we talk about a lot as a MAP caucus is that while Asian American communities are really concentrated in the metro area, we also know that there are growing populations across our state. And across our state, especially in greater Minnesota, our teaching population does not reflect that. Our teaching population is still 94% white, even though that's not our student population. So we know who is at the front of the classroom really matters, and so breaking down the barriers to get more people into those roles was incredibly important. I think the last thing I'll say about education is we pass a tremendous amount of funding for education. Education is the biggest thing that we fund as a state. It's about 40% of our state budget overall. We put a lot of our surplus into that as well, but we also know that there's work still to be done. I definitely know that for the district I represent, Minneapolis, and I know that a lot of districts across our state are really facing some really tough budget challenges right now. The federal government really stepped up during COVID and gave some extra funding that was really, supportive to schools during that time of crisis, and that this is the year that that funding runs out. And we all know that the challenges that our young people are facing from COVID have not run out, right? Those challenges that are still in the classroom, we heard that again and again in our education committee. I think a big thing that we heard about that we know, particularly affects our Asian American community is mental health, right? The mental health challenges that our young people are facing and the ways that schools are really asked to step up now to not only support students in their academic needs, but also in their social and mental health needs. And so there's definitely a need for continued funding around that, and that's definitely something that I will, and I think the rest of us will continue to push for coming into next legislative session. The other area that I'll talk about is transportation. So I was on the transportation committee, and one of the things that I really care about is the connection between transportation and climate change, and really recognizing that one of the biggest sources of climate change is cars and emissions from cars. And so I think in Minnesota, especially in this metro area, we're trying to think about how do we make it easier for people to not drive their car, both from a climate change perspective, but also because we know that certain populations, low-income populations, don't have access to cars, right? And so right now our public transportation makes it really hard for people who don't have access to a car to get to work on time without adding 20, 30, 40 minutes onto their commute. So we put a large amount of funding, the most our state had ever seen, into building out our public transportation infrastructure. We also invested in some pretty big public or transportation infrastructure projects with a train to Chicago, a train to Duluth. So yeah, I think I will stop there and hand it over to Chair Bear. good evening, everyone. First, I would like to formally welcome all of you to my district here in 38B. Welcome to Brooklyn Center. I am the state representative, so I appreciate all of you time to be here, and I want to thank all my colleagues for being here today. When me and XP first talked about doing a forum here for the MAP Caucus, one of the reasons why we decided to do here in Brooklyn Park or Brooklyn Center area is because, if you've seen the latest census data, Brooklyn Park became the second city with the largest Hmong population. And not only does the northwest suburban area have a large Hmong population, but we also have fairly a large immigrant community from African to East Asian to Southeast Asian here in the northwest suburbs. And so we think that, all the activity always comes in St. Paul, and we feel like I think the Brooklands is the next hotspot for us to make sure that we continue to engage with our members on the other side of the river. So thank you, my colleagues. I'm also used to going to St. Paul all the time, so it's nice to have my colleagues come over to the other side of the river. And so I'm the chair of agriculture. We finished our first biennium. I believe this is our first biennium finishing as first-time chairs. When me and Representative Her first got elected in 2018, it's not quite often that third-term members get chairmanship, and so we have done a lot. It's very gratifying that we've done a lot, as not only as a recent chair member, but also for the state of Minnesota. And as chair of agriculture, there were a lot of great things that we did. I think in the first 2023 session, we allocated $100 million for broadband. As we all know, during COVID and the pandemic, broadband is an essential, is a need. And so as a state, we've invested lots of dollars to make sure that communities who don't have access to internet get access to that soon, and make it easier for providers to provide that access. And also looking at where in our communities, especially in the metro area, that haven't that are underserved in terms of connectivity. And so this has been an ongoing issue that we have continued to look at, and I'm happy that the state has taken a closer look at that. Not only as part of the chair of agriculture, we've done a lot this year. This year is not a budget year like we had in 2023, but there was some funding. And this year, one hot button issue that we got done is looking at nitrates. The EPA has alerted the state that we needed to address our nitrate contamination in our groundwater in southeast Minnesota. And we were able to find some funding, about $3 million, to help families who currently have contaminated water to be able to get some treatment to their drinking water, so that we have families who can get access to clean drinking water. And so those are some of the key things that I did as chair of agriculture. There's definitely a lot. There's definitely a lot that we did, and sometimes it's hard for me to think about everything that we've done. But we definitely want to be here today to hear from what are some issues that you guys care about, that you guys want us to speak more or elaborate more about, because there's so much that that we felt like we have told many of our constituents about, but we don't hear enough about, okay, what exactly do you guys have questions about? What can we do better? Or what have we missed during these last 2 years? I think in terms of the dollars that I've delivered for the district, one of the few pockets of funding that we were able to pass through was in the workforce fund. This is Chair Young's committee. In the workforce funding, he was able to give out $16 million to organizations to provide for trainings and workforce trainings and business trainings. And of that $60 million, I was able to get $600,000 for our district to help organizations build a pipeline to support our youth and our businesses into building the workforce. So I will just keep it short and sweet like that, but I really appreciate everyone's time for being here. Really, it is really to hear from you all what questions you guys have, because we got a lot done, and there's so much to digest. And so we want to know exactly if what we're saying is answering the questions that we've got done for all of you for the state of Minnesota. So thank you for being here. And finally, before I forget, I want to thank Sewa, Anjali for hosting this, XP for reaching out to me and doing this, building a coalition to make sure that we continue to engage our communities here in the Northwest suburbs. And I also want to thank Beijing TV and Mitch for being here and give us a broader reach for our communities across the state of Minnesota.
Good evening, everyone. Yes, grateful to be here with all of you guys, and thanks to Chair Vang for hosting us and for doing all the thank yous. So I will not go through them again, but also just want to thank you for taking time out of your summer to join us, because this is really important that all of y'all have decided you want to participate in our democratic process. So appreciate that, and please bring your neighbors and your friends next time. I think for me, as a first-term member, it's just been incredible to see how much our community has come together at a time when there's a lot of uncertainty in our country, and people's belief in institutions and in federal government, state government is at its lowest point. So I just want you to know how grateful I am to see all of your faces here, because that's so important. We are at the Capitol every day, January through May, but also working in the other half of the year. And sometimes we don't get to come out in community as much. So this is really important, and just glad that you're here. I am from across the river, as has been mentioned. I represent the northeast corner of St. Paul, and so for context, that is one of the most diverse districts we have in Minnesota. It has the largest concentration of Hmong folks in the state, but we also have the largest API population, including our Karen and Karenni populations, which has become really important. I live and I grew up there, and so it is also an incredible honor to be the first woman to represent the district, and the first Asian person to ever represent it. And so that's just a little context for all of you guys. I think most of my colleagues have gone through some of their major priorities. I think there are a couple things that I want folks to take away from today, which is related to my priorities, but also is next steps for y'all if you come to meetings like this and you wonder what can we do next. As noted, we are the MAP Caucus, and for us, even though we represent our respective districts, I think we also all know that we have another burden or another task to represent the Asian American and Native Hawaiian and Pacific Islander communities in Minnesota. And so one of the really important bills that we worked on this session is a legacy bill to fund the celebrations and commemorations of 50 years of Southeast Asians in Minnesota next year. And we picked that date because that is the date that, or the year 1975 is when the United States formally pulled out of Southeast Asia. And so we're really excited that there was a lot of money invested through the Legacy Committee, which Chair holds. He's not here because he's in Paris with Sunisa Lee, but want to thank him for his leadership, and really all of our colleagues, because this is one of the bills that we talked about when we first came together 2 years ago after we were elected, just understanding that there is this big landmark anniversary, and we wanted to make it a priority because our community's immigrant history and our stories are so entrenched in trauma, but we also wanted to make sure that folks know, we've been in Minnesota for 50 years. We've contributed to the story of our state, and we've done so much, right? There's also so much to be proud of, and so much for the young children here to understand where they've come from, and also where they're going. And so I was really proud to be the House author for that bill, and the Senate author is Senator Pa here. And so we can chat a little bit more about that now, because the History Center is the agency administering these grants, and so I know there are some representatives from nonprofits here. There's a very quickly upcoming deadline in the middle of August, so I want to make sure that folks know that and put in their applications in time, because we want diverse applicants and many celebrations next year. The second thing that I want to highlight and want to make sure folks know, as someone who's on the taxes and property taxes committees, is I think one thing that we were able to do this session, which I'm incredibly proud of, is we were able to expand the child tax credit. We actually kind of like expanded it and also wrapped it up into a working family tax credit, because single adults with no children are also workers, and we want to make sure that we support them as well. And so I just want folks to understand how important that is, that we have a tax chair who fundamentally cares about the working class and middle class in Minnesota, and we want to make sure that we support all the families out there who are working and trying to raise their kids. The really important thing for us is some Asian families tend to have larger families, and so there is no cap on the child tax credit, which is also incredibly important. Choose how you want to have your families and when, and so I just want to highlight that because our child tax credit is projected to cut child poverty by at least 1/3, maybe more. We are kind of waiting to see what the impact of that is, because you really can't predict ahead of time. And so that's really important. That's going to impact generations to come. And so I want folks to understand that. And then the last piece, I know because I've also talked a lot, we like talking, obviously, that's why we're politicians, is for folks to understand that it's something that Rep. Herr said earlier, representation is great, but I want folks to understand like the importance and the value of representation, because we have a trifecta, and the reason why we were all able to pass, our pet bills or some of these like amazing impactful bills is because we have a trifecta, and we're able to use that power to benefit our communities. And that's why it's so important for everyone to vote, and vote for the folks that will help you in your communities. And I think that's just like really important to underscore. Hold on, I made some notes too. Something else to note that I think hasn't been talked about is we made a $1 billion investment in housing. I know that's really important for all communities across Minnesota, actually, not just communities of color, but we're really housing insecure across the country because we just have not kept up with inflation. And so I want folks to understand that the $1 billion is, again, a historic investment, and want folks to tap into that. Personally, for me, in case folks are interested, thanks to Chair Vang and the Senate Ag Chair, I had a bill to make it easier for families using SNAP to get good food from the farmers market. Incredibly important as we talk about health and obesity in children, to make sure that all of our families have access to fresh fruits and vegetables. And then finally, okay, I have two more, sorry you guys. Important though, computer science funding. Again, so I always think about education and how that is a really big, well, traditionally, right, it's a way of social mobility and to move between classes. And so with that lens in mind, I've been pushing for Minnesota to have what we call a foundational computer science education for all students from kindergarten to 12th grade. We know that we have a 21st century economy. The jobs of the future and the jobs that will pay more are tech jobs, and jobs where you have to be computer literate, know how to code probably. And so I've been pushing at this for a while. Every year I've gotten more money to make sure that we are training our teachers to teach these classes and building a foundation so that one day we can have computer science as a graduation requirement. That's just important. And I mean, part of it is, like if your parents have money, they can pay for you to go to coding camp during the summer or their after school programs, but not everyone has access to that. You just have to be lucky and at a high school where your principal thinks it's important. And so I've really been trying to push to make sure that every student in Minnesota, regardless of whether you are in Winona, Duluth, St. Paul, or Minneapolis, has access to this education. Also important for our workforce. We have 3M, Cargill, all these amazing companies that have to recruit from out of state. And so for them, it's a really important workforce issue because it's a hard proposition to tell folks to come here in like negative degree weather. And so it's a win-win for everyone, something really important for our students so that they have access to these jobs of the future that they're totally ready for. And then finally, this year I had the honor of passing the Minnesota Film Office bill. This is a passion project of mine. It's going to bring Hollywood to Minnesota. And I know some folks are like, questioning why that is. But basically, a lot of the movies you've seen have probably been filmed in Georgia because they recently have really upped up their efforts to do productions in their states. For me, we have a lot of talented artists here, especially in our Asian community and our communities of color. This is a really good opportunity for us to tap into, the Hollywood studio. So we're going to have an office at the Explore Minnesota agency, and we're going to put in bids for Minnesota to be shooting locations for future productions. And it is the hope that this will drive more economic activity to the state and create more jobs. And with that, I will finally close and pass on to Senator Pop.
Thank you. Yajong, thank you all for coming this evening. As I look around, I see so many familiar faces, people who have visited the Capitol, advocated for your organizations, advocated for the issues that you care about. And I want to thank all of you for your advocacy and your continual partnership with us at the Capitol. Make sure that we are servicing the needs of our API communities and that we're not forgotten. There is a difference this legislative session that we have ever seen in our history. And it is because we have so many API legislators at the Capitol. We have done more for our API community than has ever been done in the state of Minnesota, because representation matters. Even though we have a big API community here in the state of Minnesota, we're often remembered when it comes to voting time. We're forgotten when appropriations go out and the dollars and resources get distributed throughout our communities. We're forgotten. And when we are at the table, we make sure that we're not forgotten. And it makes a difference when you have 10 API legislators at the Capitol, and that is why we have had such a historic legislative years already, the last 2 years. I'm proud to be part of this MAP caucus, proud to be a state senator in this district. Welcome to our district. As Representative Samantha Vang has said, this is our district, and we don't often have community sessions here. So welcome here. And our district, Senate District 38, is actually the #1 most diverse district in the whole state of Minnesota. And most people wouldn't think that of Brooklyn Center, Brooklyn Park, and Osseo, but it is. Most people think that's Minneapolis and St. Paul, but it isn't. And as you walk through our communities, you'll hear so many languages being spoken, hundreds of different languages being spoken in grocery stores, on the streets, in community meetings and events, and it's wonderful to hear. The past 2 years, I've had the honor to lead on a couple of bills that I'm so proud of that is directly impacting our API community. And of those, we were not able to pass anything for seawall this past legislative session, but you know that we're going to be fighting still for seawall because spaces like this where our API community gathers is important. And as you can tell today, we don't have the AC at its best because we don't have the funds to fund centers like this. And exactly why the capital investment that we're fighting for is so necessary, right? I had the privilege of leading on a bill for Kathy, who is also here, for their capital investment for their building of $5 million plus. We were able to get some dollars for SGU, veterans, for a museum, for Hmong 18 Council for a community center, for the Changsha Friendship Garden in Phelan Lake in St. Paul, for the 50th anniversary commemoration that Representative Liz Lee talked about. I'm sorry, I'm going to blank. And so many more. We've got dollars for our API organizations and nonprofits and groups throughout the state of Minnesota that are servicing our communities. We've got so much dollars supporting our API businesses, small businesses. We've got dollars that support our API artists and our festivals in the state of Minnesota. These are things that happen because finally our state starts to reflect the people that live in it. And again, our API community is not being left behind. So I'm so proud of the work that we do, but we've got so much more work to do. And with that, I look forward to working with all of you to further advocate for our communities, further advocate for the things that we need here in the state of Minnesota, And I would love to hear from you today, things that you're proud of, but also things that you want to see for the 2025 legislative session. What are the things that we should be prioritizing and that we should be bringing up and advocating for? I had the privilege of passing 3 bills specifically on youth and cannabis this past year. And that was to make sure that as we roll out cannabis, that we think about our young people, that we protect them, that we have prevention, intervention, and treatment for them. Incarceration is not an option. It's not something that our young people should be facing. And so in this upcoming session, that's something I care about that I'm going to further in a couple of different bills as well, and would love to hear from all of you outside of this what your thoughts are when it comes to youth and cannabis, because that will be a priority for me aside from all the other stuff that we care about, but that will be a continuing of something I've been working on. Thank you so much.
Hi, I'll be very brief. I am not a legislator, but I am the legislative assistant for Senator Tu Zhang, who represents Maplewood, Oakdale, North St. Paul, in Little Canada. He did intend to be here. He apologizes he wasn't able to make it, but happy to speak with anybody who would like to follow up with Senator Zhang or answer any questions as best as I can. I'll just quickly highlight some of the work that he did over this biennium. This past year, he worked he authored a bill to provide funding for the Sabathani Community Center in Minneapolis to go towards geothermal, which is an exciting new technology to kind of help Minnesota reach our 2040 climate goals. He also authored a bill to hold contractors accountable for wage theft protection. We've still been seeing a lot of contractors who take advantage of workers, especially low-income workers. For the biennium as a whole, he was the co-author on the 2040 plan. He is the vice chair of energy, utilities, and climate in the Senate. So he was very excited to work on that. He also helps create the Minnesota Climate Innovation Finance Authority, which provided money to have the state fund energy projects that might not always, be something that can get funding through, private equity. But it's exciting, especially for communities of color who are often disadvantaged when it comes to, getting financing for their energy projects. He also helps provide more funding for the adult basic education program in Minnesota, especially, very helpful for people who, speak English as a second language, or, immigrants who are taking classes to have a better chance to find, quality work in Minnesota. And selfishly, I will highlight his work to create the student loan advocate. I say selfishly because I myself have had my student loans transfer from provider to provider, and this position is going to help people who are working to pay off their student loans to have somebody who can help them understand this process. There's been times where I've spent hours on the phones just trying to understand who I owe money to and how to go about continuing to pay off my student loans, which will likely be an ongoing process. Yes, I just want to highlight those. Like I said, I'm more than happy to answer questions as best as I can that you might have for Senator Zhang, or to connect with you, to follow up with you, to connect you with him.
Wow, you all. Let's give them another great big round of applause for all of that work.